Welcome back. Welcome back to ESI. This is the episode number 8. And ESI is our webinar series where we discuss how entrepreneurship, startups, and innovation are contributing to shape the post-pandemic world across ASEAN and East Asia. And in case you missed and you're curious, you can find all the recordings of our previous episodes on our ERIA YouTube channel. I'm Giulia Monemarsan, Area Director for Strategy and Partnership, and I'm here together with TJ Oy from Curated Connectors, also an entrepreneur, like our speakers today, and Lina Maulidina, also from ERIA, and we are the co-host of this webinar series. Today, we are here to talk with 4 very successful entrepreneurs from Indonesia, the Philippines, and Malaysia about women entrepreneurship and e-commerce. At ERIA, we have been quite active in working, studying, analyzing the participation of women across ASEAN in the digital economy. This is a very important and interesting topic, and this is particularly important for the ASEAN region, given the booming digital economy, also driven by the pandemic over the last couple of years, and actually before. It's a trend that that was pre-pandemic, a pre-pandemic trend. So it's really important to, let's say, build back better including digital economies in the region for more women to become entrepreneurs and for more women entrepreneurs to embrace, use, and invest in digital technologies. And clearly, e-commerce is a key aspect in this transition and transformation. So it is very important for female entrepreneurs in the region and actually beyond to go e-commerce, to be successful in the booming digital economy that we are currently witnessing. So we are very grateful to have the chance to discuss today about all these trends and also their personal journeys as entrepreneurs with Lisha, Penny, Mel, and Shanaz. TJ will introduce them in detail in a minute. But before I give the floor to TJ, let me just please remind you to keep your microphone on mute during the entire duration of the webinar. But as you know, we have a chat box that typically is a very active chat box. So feel free to interact with us through the chat box and also ask questions to the speaker, because we will use your questions towards the end of the webinar during the Q&A segment to continue the conversation with our 4 entrepreneurs today. So it's time to start with the real conversation. Over to you, TJ.
Thank you very much, Julia. I am excited this afternoon because we've got 4 dynamic women speakers joining us. And to all our participants, thank you once again for joining us this afternoon. So let me quickly introduce our 4 speakers to you. First off, we have Ms. Lisha Erza, CEO of ASICS. She leads a supply chain collaboration and fintech company with offices in Indonesia, Singapore, and the Netherlands. Lisha has been fervently promoting digital and sustainable supply chain financing for growth stage SMEs and circular economies. Through the Indonesian Employers Association, APindo, she actively advocates for youth and women entrepreneurship. She also sits on the International Access Committee of the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce. We were just talking shortly before this, her latest initiative, which is Melati Nusantara, is an integrated program for female SME entrepreneurs to support digital and financial literacy for participants. Melati provides a series of technical assistance, training, and access to finance supported by the UN Capital Development Fund, or UNCDF, Visa, FMO, Government of Canada, as well as Australia Aid. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Lisha.
Hi, TJ. Thank you.
Let me move on to our next speaker. She is Ms. Penny Lim, founder and CEO of Homa, which is an online platform in Malaysia that offers building materials and home finishing products at a bargain with a strong focus on sustainability. The company's vision is to reinforce the global home makeover community through people-centric values while reducing the environmental crisis. So they consciously source overstocked materials from construction sites and aging products from brand merchants. And through that, making this platform really one that is value for money. As a graduate in operational management, Penny has been in the trading and marketing of architectural products with more than 14 years of industry experience. And she has successfully disrupted the traditional brick and mortar business by enabling the construction and renovation industry in Malaysia to progress into a more affordable and effective sourcing and repurposing through overstock office-to-office business platform. So thank you, Penny, for joining us.
Thank you, TJ, for having me.
Our next speaker is Ms. Anna Melissa Nava, also affectionately known as Mel Nava, co-founder and CEO of Export, which she started in 2016 in the Philippines. One Export is an online platform that allows SMEs to become compliant with international requirements and find buyers so that they can successfully enter and sell into international markets. From the time of founding until today, they have served more than 3,500 MSMEs and more than 10 communities in the region across the US, Middle East, Asia, and Australia. Data analytics is used to connect buyers with suppliers and improve the just-in-time efficiency for faster order and document processing. Her earlier experiences in trade and her entrepreneurial spirit have been the perfect blend as she has endeavored to empower Filipinos in other countries to also embark on their own entrepreneurial journeys. So, Mel, welcome back. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Our final speaker is Ms. Shanas Winanto. She's the founder of Roro Kenes, an Indonesian artisan woven bag business with sustainability and ethical concepts. Shanas believes that a good business is not only emphasized on having good products, but also for fostering the community's prosperity and sustainability ethics. She is also a member of E-Trade for Women, a program for women entrepreneurs facilitated by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, in short known as UNCTAD. She has participated in several international exhibitions, from the Japan-Indonesian Business Forum to New York Now, Mercedes-Benz fashion show in Russia. She holds a master's in development management from the Asia Institute of Management in the Philippines. Thank you, Shanes, for joining us. So,
Thank you, TJ.
These are our 4 speakers for this afternoon. We will be going through 2 rounds of conversations with them. And then thereafter, we will open for a round of question and answers. So during the time of this entire webinar, we want to encourage our participants, you, to put in your questions in the chat box. If it's to a specific speaker, please do address it to the speaker. And then my co-host, Lena, will then address it and ask our speakers to give and share their thoughts. So without further ado, let us start the conversation. Licia, I am very sure our participants are interested to hear from you how you got into the business and what or who inspired you to do so. Licia?
Yeah, hi TJ. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining today. I got into the business because I was roped in actually by another female entrepreneur. So for many years, I think over a decade, I've been working with large companies and organizations. And at that time, my work was actually building companies within companies. But in my head, it was like, okay, I'm working for another company. I was not the leading entrepreneur. But then my good friend, Karen Teal, at the time, she started a blockchain company. And she said, hey, why don't you start leading your own company? And I thought, well, really? Can I really do that? And she was like, don't be ridiculous. You've been building companies throughout your whole career. So she said, and just have a look at it and look at what you've been doing. And at the time, I was still in Hong Kong. And I've been looking at how the SMEs in different markets are trying to get into the digital transformation, renewing their businesses. And when I looked into the Indonesian landscape, I thought, well, actually, some of these businesses can really benefit from better visibility over their supply chains. And actually, supply chain finance in Indonesia is still a fairly new concept. And while everywhere else in Europe and in America, supply chain finance is being used to finance trades for SMEs, in Indonesia, it's still fairly new. Not many people know how to use it. And that's how I started looking into the companies that work in this space. So then the opportunity presented itself, and there was a company called ASICS that's set up maybe about 11 years ago. So then I looked at it, and then the team, they were bought over by a new pool of investors, and then they said, hey, here's your chance. Do you want to be the leading entrepreneur? And I was like, oh, okay. At first I was scared, but then Karen again told me, hey, you've been building companies, only this time you're not under a bigger group. You have to build this yourself and then run ASICS as you see fit. So I did. I stepped up, and that's how I started being in this position. And in your question about the inspiration, actually, a lot of my work now is also inspired by another female entrepreneur. She was the first female CEO for Unilever in Indonesia. And I had the chance to work with her in the past. And for her, it's all about impact. How do we then translate our own passion through our own work, and looking at the Indonesian landscape. SMEs are largely owned and run by women. So that's why I am where I am today.
Thank you very much, Lisha. I know embarking on this entrepreneurial journey is always one that is scary but exciting at the same time, isn't it?
Exactly.
Let me move on to Penny, because our participants, we want to hear your stories. So why don't you share with us, Penny, what got you into this business?
How do I get into this business? But before I actually talk about how I get into this business, I wanted to say about something before I start this business. So about 14 years ago, I was like another graduate that just graduated from university and so on. So I actually went to interviews of like different companies. And then I remember I went into like F&B, I went into like some tech company, and finally this industry which is selling tiles, those finishes products. So when I went to interview, right, my boss actually told me, Penny, do you know that if you wanted to join this industry, right, you need to be very smart? I was like, yeah, I'm quite smart, but I didn't really know like what is the things that actually he meant. But after that, when I joined this company, only I know that, in our industry, we are dealing with a lot of different class of people. We have to deal with, the foreigners, foreign workers, up to like, the project managers, up to like developers, contractors, and sometimes, the Datuk Tan Sri in our country. So it's a different kind of levels of people that you really need to have a people skill in order to start. So that is how I actually got into this industry. And of course, my parents also run a business where they are actually supplying all these building materials to construction site. That is something not very new to me. So, but after I've worked for like almost 8 years already from the corporate world, I actually went back to help my parents. So when I take over my parents' company, as usual, we will always have arguments with parents because they will have a different view and I will have a different view. But, running a family business is really not easy because most of the time, the key holder is usually my parents. So when I was to take over the business, it was really struggle because moving forward, I really couldn't see like what is going to happen in the next 3 years, especially in this industry, right? It's a very traditional industry where you are relying very much on the like relationship. Oh, I know you a lot, then I will tend to like give you more credit terms, I'll give you more business and things like that. So it's just like how much credit you can actually give out in order to get that kind of business. So after taking over my parents' company, I really think that, okay, there is not much that I can do. So I remember that I actually went to one of the trip with my mom, and one of my friends actually called me, hey, Penny, I actually over-ordered this kind of materials. It's about $500,000, and I couldn't really get rid of it. And this actually caused financially problems to my company. I was like, hey, it's actually trying to help my friend. I was like, okay, why don't I actually help you to sell this at a cheaper price to another construction site so that you can cash out the money that you have to pay. And that way you can actually help to, besides someone getting cheaper, right, you can actually help to untie your cash flow. So after that, I was like, yeah, if this person have this problem, right, I'm sure that a lot more construction site will have this problem. Then in 2016, I actually embraced, there is not many companies actually doing this kind of thing, because to them it's like, yeah, I'm actually dealing with 100 million of, contracts. To me, it's like 500,000 is nothing. But, there is nobody wanted to go into this kind of dirty hand. I was like, yeah, if I can actually got into this and I don't have to give credit terms, I can, fetch a better profit margin, why not? So I actually used my parents' storefront to start looking into this kind of products and start talking to a lot of contractor friends. And then I really noticed that this is one of the huge problems that is untouched. Then in 2017, I take the leap of faith and go into it. And I said, yeah, I will be the one person, the first company that deal with all this junk, and we're going to turn it into treasure. This is how I actually start off my journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny. Yes, junk can be treasure at the right moment, at the right time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you saw the need, you met that need. So thank you so much for sharing. Mel, I'd like to talk to you next. How have things been with you? How has the business been since, we last spoke last year? Maybe you want to share with us your journey since then.
Sure. So of course we started One Export because we wanted to help small and medium businesses export, right? The pandemic has really brought a lot of challenges for small and medium businesses, especially with retail being closed down, right? Almost shut down completely. A lot of them relying on online and deliveries, right? And so a lot of small and medium businesses needed a channel, which was exports, right? There is a study where 47% of the time that you buy from Amazon or eBay, you're probably buying it from cross-border, right? And I think that was something that we really took advantage of. So I guess the first years when we were starting the business, we were thinking about the right product to build, and we realized that one of them is e-commerce exporting, right? But over the last year, we have focused on growing the business, right? Not just growing in terms of sales or revenues, and the number of customers we onboard, but growing sustainably, right? Because of course the pandemic also means that you don't necessarily have funding at whenever you want it, right? So you have to make sure that you have cash flows. You have to make sure that your operations are sustainable, and even with the lockdowns, right, that everybody in your staff is safe and safe from COVID, right? So a lot of it is really about moving digitally, but also making sure that we're able to grow, but not sacrificing a lot of our margins. And so far, it's been very successful. Like we've had this approach where we make sure everyone is safe, but we will make sure that we're able to hit targets. And we've so far hit our targets because we are digital, but we also realize that we are focusing on a particular need our customers want, and we've been so growing very fast so far.
Thank you very much, Mel. I can sense the excitement in your voice. Yeah. At some stage, in the whole entrepreneur journey, it goes beyond just trying to make the business work, right? It's the whole back end and your staff, and especially in this environment, how can you keep everyone safe while still ensuring that you can meet the targets that you set for each and every one of the team? So thank you so much for sharing. Before I move on to Shanaz, for our participants, really, I just want to encourage you. The chat box is open. Please do make use of it. Post your questions that you have. And our speakers would also be able to respond to those questions when their time permits. So for Shanaz, you are an entrepreneur focusing on artisan woven bags in Indonesia. Could you share with us, how and why did you decide to hop on the e-commerce bandwagon? Shanaz?
Oh, I see. Thank you very much for the questions. And then thank you very much for having me in here among all those beautiful and wonderful women. It's a real honor for me. Well, before I really want to go to explain why the reason I go to digital, the first reason why it has to go first in why do I want to build my business at the first place. The main reason that I built Rorotanes is just to be able to preserve and then promote Indonesian artisanal products. working closely with local artisans. While in here, we are also promoting gender issues as well as working closely with sustainable point of view as well as ethical. And then digital becoming one of the very, very important tools for us to achieve it nationwide and then worldwide, especially working closely with the issues that we are having it in here, genders, local, and then good product, meeting with sustainable standards and so on. And then when we are talking about e-commerce, the basis of e-commerce is about digital, right? It's all about digital. And going digital is a very important tool. It's very important nowadays. COVID is only making it more quicker. And then by going digital, especially for me as an SMEs, as a small medium enterprises, you'll be able to get a network, you'll be able to get data, you'll be able to get analysis for your customer as well as market that you are going to enter. And then you'll be able to do branding, especially with purpose, as what my company do. And then therefore you'll be able to get the sales that you want, not just in the nation scale of market, but also in the region scale and as well as international scale. So that's the importance why entrepreneurs should go to digital and then e-commerce.
Thank you so much, Shanes. Yes, I think it really opens up the world, especially when it comes to data analysis, the trends that you can derive from it. And probably, later during Q&A, if no one asks a question, I have got a question for our speakers as well, about the benefits that you may have reaped from it. Let me just do a pause here first, because, reaching out to our participants, you have seen our speakers, I will encourage you, please do reach out to them beyond this particular session. They are available on LinkedIn. Go look out for them, connect with them, hear from them. I already preempted them earlier, so they are ready to receive, the connection invitations from you. So don't miss out on this opportunity. Don't miss out on this opportunity. So, Shanes, back to you. You are part of the E-Trade for Women community facilitated by UNCTAD. Do share with us a little bit more about this initiative, and I guess more importantly, how is it supporting women entrepreneurs in their entrepreneurship journey?
I see. I was very grateful meeting with them though, and then being chosen as one of the participants last year when as a cohort in their training and then education terms. Well, as E-Trade for Women was launched in September 2019 by the United Nations. And then the initiative specifically supports women entrepreneurs in the digitals worldwide, throughout support entrepreneurs in the digital space to help them thrive as business leaders and to become an influence voice in their ecosystem. E-Trade for Women communities are regional networks with more than 100 women entrepreneurs across the globe. So like in here during my time, I was in our classroom, there's a women from Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Philippines, etc. And then Southeast Asia community gather women digital entrepreneurs coming from those countries. Yeah, and then from that point of view, we be able to get networking. We be able to get what is the insight or inside of the market inside of the market of each of the countries that the women representative, and then what is the needs of the market. So after networking come collaborating, and then after collaborating there is a come of sales, and then also information about the market, information about resources, etc. And thank goodness that I found UNCTAD, because from the lesson that I got from them, it's not just stop in me. but I be able to deliver it more into my community, and then I be able to deliver it into a training lesson for the clusters that working with my company. I have a economic subsistence, circular economic subsistence cluster, which is in here. There are the marginalized women in my city. So there's about 25 women of them that not even graduated from senior high school. So from the curriculum that I got from UNTAD, I be able to give them a very basic learning. How do you able to enter digital marketing? How do you able to enter e-commerce smartly? So therefore, I thank you very much for the opportunity last year from UNTAD.
Thank you very much, Hannes. You shared some things that are very important. I think the whole opportunity to network, and then from there to collaborate, access to information, and of course, then begin to be able to drive sales. And I think you also shared something that was very interesting in that as you received, the knowledge and the sharing from UNCTAD, you've also gone down to the ground to empower the local women entrepreneurs in your community. So thank you so much for sharing. Mel, let me come back to you. Quite a number of our participants here would be aspiring entrepreneurs. Yeah. You will be the first to share with us in terms of what skill sets and mindsets do you think women entrepreneurs need to have in the digital economy? If they want to go online, they want to embark on e-commerce, what type of skill sets and mindsets do you think they would need?
Okay, I guess 3 things. First is the ability to listen to your customers, right? So first, when export started, actually, we weren't even sure if we were going to be digital. We wanted to be, initially we started off as a consulting company for, people that want to export. And eventually people, there was a clamor for people telling us, why don't you try and scale this? Because a lot of small and medium enterprises want to avail of your services, right? So first, it's the ability to listen to your customers. Second is to be able to grow sustainably, right? Especially for female founders, and especially at the time of the pandemic, you don't necessarily get funding, right? It is not readily available. People will not give it to you if you do not have a track record, right? So I think the second part is like, given the current customer base that you have, how sure are you that you will be able to grow, right? Because we have to always assume, of course, the best, mid case and worst case scenario, but always assume the worst case. Assume that you will not necessarily get funding, you will not necessarily have payroll for the next day. So how are you able to build that cash flow, right? And lastly, I think it's important for us to not just think local, but go global, right? It's not, whether you are starting a small business selling bags, for example, or if you want to create your own platform, right? You have to understand that your customers are not just people in your locality, right? There will be other customers, say abroad, that will try and avail of your services or products, right? And how are you able to take advantage of that and serve those customers, right? It's important to be able to have all of these 3 mindsets, I believe, in order for you to grow, because of course, digital is not just about, when we used to think where we were only going to serve our local communities, that's no longer the case now, right? We need to be able to grow when we grow digitally, it's not just about growing within your community, but growing worldwide. And how will you be able to adapt to those challenges?
Thank you very much, Mel. So let me try to summarize quickly what she just shared. One is really, you need to listen to the needs of your customers. And after you've identified the opportunity, how can you grow it sustainably? And of course, all our entrepreneurs here think big. Whether it's regionally, globally, think big. Don't be afraid to think big. Go beyond your local borders and boundaries. Thanks so much for sharing. So to ride on this wave of skill sets, mindsets, I want to move to Leisha. As you look beyond the pandemic, what do you think are important factors that are necessary to continue the support of the growth of women entrepreneurship? Yeah, Lisha?
Yeah, well, I think I agree. I mean, continuing on what Mel said, I mean, you have to think big, you have to start, and there are issues with track record in trade. We don't realize it, but actually what we're looking at is the movement of goods. The movement of the documentation of those goods becomes a track record, and then the movement of money, which becomes then the cash flow. And this applies not just during the pandemic, it gets highlighted during pandemic, but post the pandemic, what we're looking at are really this big wave of people going digital. I looked up the other day and I'm preparing for this actually, and even in 2020 alone, 40 million people came online. So that's a huge number of people. I mean, 40 million people. So that means if they're moving online, then the markets for all the women entrepreneurs out there are also living now online. But then if you look at the country by country case, in Indonesia, it is the highest e-commerce adoption at 87%. So it's like almost the whole of the country has gone e-commerce. But the internet users have only reached 16%. So then there's still a lot of room on people, getting online, the markets for women entrepreneurs going online. But then going on e-commerce, it's not just about the selling, as I think a lot of the speakers have also shown here. It is about the impact, it's about the backbone of the business. And that's why we also come up with Melati as one of our programs, which is to empower women entrepreneurs to not be afraid of different technologies, whether it's to obtain new knowledge, to be able to have that track record that Mel mentioned, and even technologies to access finance. Because now, in the past, you go to a bank, ask for financing, you bring like a whole pile of documents, but now it's all online, as I think Mel could also have see, and Penny as well, and Shanaz. Even finding financing beyond the pandemic has gone online as well. So it is important to have all these activities now moving online, and having women entrepreneurs being confident to navigate these digital solutions. So as important factors, I suppose it's building the capacity, building the confidence, and building access to all these different digital tools for us to build our businesses on. At the end of the day, again, if we look at like our bodies, we have the muscles, we have the shapes, but at the end of the day, we do need that oxygen. And for a business, cash flow is also the oxygen. So then we need a lot of people working together now online. So I guess those are relevant post-pandemic as well.
Thanks very much, Lisha. I caught a few things that you shared, one of which would be really the access to technology and access to finance, which thankfully I think has increased over the recent 18 to 24 months. And you also touched on a very important point, which is the willingness and the openness to continue to learn, to don't stop at status quo, but continue to learn, continue to grow, and to have that community, where you can, get advice, you can share advice, and you can just learn and pick up from each other. So thank you so much. I will want to now move to Penny. You shared that you started off with tiles. This sector of yours is a traditionally male-dominated sector, because you shared a few times, you got to get your hands dirty. So for aspiring women entrepreneurs that are keen to enter these traditional sectors, what advice can you give to them? We would love to hear from you.
Of course, the previous three speakers are generally sharing their knowledge about how we should really go into, knowing more people, knowing more customer needs, and increasing the skill and so on. But I'm going to do a little bit more on the sentiment side. So I always love this quote, which is, you must be willing to fly so much that you are willing to give up being a caterpillar. So this is one of the quotes that I really like it, because it really, sometimes the limitation is not just onto ourselves. Of course, being in a situation where you always have a lot of comments about women shouldn't be, working, or women shouldn't be even starting a business, having your own the life, because you should be dedicating your life to your families. And you know, when I started this business, I do have like a lot of comments coming from the peers, like, you shouldn't be going and, you know, pick up rubbish, and you shouldn't be setting up all these. You're working in a corporate world. Why are you not satisfied with things that you have? But because we always believe that everyone should have a dream and they should live upon their dreams. I believe that, or I really hope that in the future, if really my children has grown up, they will be proud of me, like, you know, Mom, you really embrace and go and chase after your dreams and so on. I think this is one of the things. It's not only about whether we are in a male dominance industry or things like that, but it's more towards like how you want this thing to happen. And I think that we shouldn't be living in the regrets. If there is anything that you want, right, you should go out and just try it. Speak to your spouse, speak to your partners, and get their blessing. And, you know, moving forward is definitely not easy. Try to connect with like-minded people, like a lot of us here. You can just add us in the LinkedIn, and we are happy to share, because especially female entrepreneurs, right, we may tend to get very emotional sometimes when we face, you know, roadblocks and things like that. Like what Mel mentioned, it's not easy to get fundings, especially people might be doubting on you. You know, you are a female, and whether you can do it or not. Can you really scale? You know, in a startup world, people is talking about scalability. Can you really scale abroad? And, you know, you are leaving your children behind, your family behind. But I think that in this kind of era, right, everything is possible. So don't just name us under, you know, you are a female entrepreneur, but we can do things like what other men can do as well. Thank you so much.
Fantastic sharing. Live life with no regrets. And like what I think Lisha was putting in the chat, love the quote. Yeah. Be willing to fly so much that you are willing to give up being a caterpillar. I got that right?
Yes.
So in our past sessions, almost every session, one of the speakers will come up with some fantastic quote. So this session is no different, you know? Yeah. Be willing to fly so much that you are willing to give up being a caterpillar, on the ground. Yeah. So
Yes.
Live life with no regrets, all our participants. Yeah. Thank you so much to the four of you for sharing your thoughts, sharing your journey. You know, because this is Women Entrepreneur session, many questions have already started coming in. Yeah. So, you know, your job is not done, unfortunately. We are now going to pass the floor over to Lena, because she is ready to go with the questions that have been just coming on. So Lena, over to you.
Lena, unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry, I'm too much enthusiastic about this and forgot to unmute myself. So thank you so much for sharing. To all of the four speakers, yes, we have already got so many questions. And maybe some question has been answered implicitly, but I get the sense from our audiences that they has already got inspired to follow your career path as the women-led entrepreneurs and eager to know more about the challenges, especially on the technical and structural challenges. So the question is, reflecting from your experiences as the women-led business in digitalization era, what and how do you cope with the challenges when you start begin your business into digital? So okay, so Lisha is nodding. Actually, I guess you're ready to answer the first question. So over to you, Lisha.
The challenge of going digital, first of all, is fear. Afraid that you push the wrong button, then something blows out somewhere. But going digital, I mean, there are challenges that I find here working with SMEs in, you know, outside of the bigger cities. Infrastructure is still a challenge, but we also see people understanding that these are challenges. So then you see, we start seeing that smaller internet service providers starting to pop up as well. And funny enough, one of the biggest internet service providers in the Eastern Bloc of Indonesia The company is led by another female, so Dinette, and she has this. She works with Facebook in bringing internet services into rural areas and teaching people how to use the internet, intelligently, because then your mobile phones are really powerful tools. So the challenge is, of course, first of all, having the infrastructure. Sometimes the government is just so overloaded with all infrastructure demands, but private sector can start doing it. And we work also with, village-owned enterprises where, even the craziest ideas would be like, oh, let's gather about 100 villages, and then we chip in for a subscription to a satellite service, so they have satellite internet. So it's breaking that boundary of thinking that we can't do it. As Penny said, if you want to fly, go and find a way to fly. So the challenge is first of all, infrastructure, and then second of all, it's breaking your own internal, I guess, psychological barrier to want to go digital. It's not as complex as we think, and just go out and do it. I guess that hopefully that answers.
Okay, sure. Thank you for sharing from Indonesian perspective as well. And okay, you said fly to Penny, so let's fly to Penny now. Penny, over to you.
For me, definitely would be user experience to me, because I believe that tech side or digital side is always just a tools, but try to learn more about what the customer really want, like what Mel just mentioned just now, because you may think that, oh, I wanted to build this high-tech thingy, I want to go into AI, I need to go into all this kind of thing, but your user experience is not there. So customer will not be able to embrace. So what my suggestion would be, always go and listen to your customer, do it one step at a time, test out, and then get the experience or get the feedback already and further improve. Don't just start like being like, I want it to be perfect in order to launch out. So go step by step. Once you have launched it already, then things will fall into place. Nothing is going to be perfect. Yeah, that's what my thoughts.
Yes, fully agree. So one step at a time. So Mel, over to you now.
Sure. I guess for digital, right? Like a lot of the in-person relationship experience has been lost, right? I think it's important to build trust, right? So I mean, as already mentioned by Alicia and Penny, of course, it's listening to your customers, it's being able to build the infrastructure, but of course, trust needs to be built, because like even in an e-commerce experience where everything is digital, a lot of people get scammed, and so after that, people will say, I don't want to go digital anymore. I don't want to buy anything online anymore. I'm just going to go to my store, right? So, we build trust by having a lot of repeated positive experiences, and I think as people in people that want to start their own businesses, it's important to really create that ecosystem that people can trust, right? So of course that's one. And of course, with trust comes in transparency, right? The relationships offline are no longer available online. So a lot of these can be mitigated by really having a transparent process, right? For example, even with telling your customers, oh, I'm sorry, we cannot deliver this day because these things happened, right? So I think that level of transparency will really enable a lot of digitization across Southeast Asia.
Okay, thank you, Mel. So it's important to building trust. And move to Shanas. Shanas, we understand that your business is based in Semarang, which is not in Jakarta as the capital city of Indonesia. So what is your perspective on this when you decide to go business in digital? Shanas, sorry, you're mute.
Sorry. Yep, like digital is making your life more easier. I found that during COVID time, my sales were not going down, but my sales were up, and I'd be able to reach 4 more countries because of digital. So when people say like I have difficulties during COVID, and then my business is going down, it didn't happen with us. I'd be able to reach more customers overseas because of digital. From digital, you be able to bring your customers closer to you. And then from digital, you be able to give them the experience, look like they are buying the product out of your showroom in Semarang, and you'll be able to tell them stories without boundaries. Like I don't have to meet them. I'll be able to reach them through our social media. I'll be able to reach them through our website. I just have to make out our SEO strategy, optimizing more maximum in there, and then also the SEO and SEM, and then landing page. I just working closely with that, and then sew it together into a very nice, like what you call it, piece of cloth that I'll be able to wear it as my brand. By digital, you'll be able to know your target market more precisely. You'll be able to get the insight of your overseas export market very precisely, and then from the data that you'll be able to gather from that, there's the data that you'll be able to gather from several apps. And then I think Lisha will be able to explain it more about the app that can be very helpful when you are going to start your business in e-commerce. And then from those data, you'll be able to from those data you'll be able to make it more nice, niche, like in this market, like in which market should I go, in which demography should I go, in which psychologically targeted for age that I should go, accordingly meet with the value of my company or a value of my brand. And it's not expensive, it's quite cheap, because when we are talking about Facebook, when we are talking about LinkedIn, when we are talking about Instagram, it's all about data, right? And it's all about connecting the network within it. So digital is quite important, especially for SMEs, because it will cut your expenses up into half. And when you cut your expenses up into half, and you be able to reach customer more wider, it means in here you'll be able to generate profit more. So digital, once again, digital is very important, especially if you want to do it nationwide, and then region-wide, and then thirdly is international-wide. So I don't have any trouble selling my goods into Jakarta. I don't have any trouble selling my goods into Singapore. I don't have any trouble selling my goods up to Poland, because they be able to pay through digital. We are working closely with aggregator that is very well known, and the data is preserved. And in here, trust is very important. I agree with Mel and then the other girls, that trust is very important in here. Do not betray our customer trust.
Yes, very interesting tips. And we've known from Shana's experience that digitalization really can close the gap between urban and rural divide. So the next question is from entrepreneurship lenses. What do you think the role of universities and education system or government to support the women-led entrepreneurship journey in digital market? So I understand, I know, Lisha, you've been managing the Melati community. So would you like to share a bit about that, about your experience? Over to you, Lisha.
Yeah, thank you. For universities, I think if you have a crystal ball, they can tell you anything you want to know. Universities will be the best place to do it, because you go to the university, look at what the research results are, and for women to access knowledge, something like how do you optimize a machinery production, and how do you find new R&D in I don't know, fiber processing, for example. Universities are the best place to look into that, and because they have a library that's generally open for all the student research, all the faculty research facilities, universities can become this beacon of light, of knowledge. Even with Melati, we work with universities that has like tech tax center labs that can give advice to SMEs on, how do you report in tax planning. We work with universities as well in terms of, some basic management skills. Sometimes women don't always go into business school, but they run businesses. So universities can be this beacon of light. In terms of government, I think a lot of the policies have to look into like a more gender lens perspective, especially in areas where women, I think somebody mentioned earlier, if you're female and you have a business, there's this pressure that you shouldn't be too successful, because if you're a successful female, then that means you're not being a good mother, you're not being a good wife, you're not being a good something just because you're successful in business. So sometimes the policies need to look at this and how we can support women in running their businesses without having to let go of their other duties, in managing their time. Because male or female, TJ or I, we have 24 hours, we have the same amount of time. So the government policies need to look into that. And sometimes also in terms of like property rights. And a lot of women would have, assets registered under their brother's name, their father's name, their uncle's names. So when it comes to access to finance, sometimes then, as women, we turn out not to have anything, whereas actually through the businesses that we build, the family owns, either land or motorcycles or in anything that could be a collateral. So I think that the way the government needs to look at policies that empower women entrepreneurs, it's not just about yay, we're supporting women, yay, we're creating these cheap loans and things. No, but it's also about that social engineering aspect that the government actually has room to play in that as well.
Sure. Thank you, Lesia. And I think please feel free to share the Melati's initiative in the chat box or the link if you wanted to. I guess some Indonesian audiences of ours might want to know about that.
Yeah, we'll do. Well, maybe just like a 10-second intro on Melati. So Melati is an initiative that we build with partners, including Shanaz here, as well as part of the speakers in the program. So it's a year-long program to do basically 3 things. First, it's the education, different tools, different business tools, different business skills that we build. So there's technology, business, supply chain finance in particular, because it's trade-based and not asset-based financing. And then at the end of the program, what we do is the participants to this program, they get access to some of the free softwares that we and our partners provide, including sort of like the digitizing your invoices, digitizing your inventory planning, for example. And at the end of the program, these data that each of the participants have becomes a foundation for them to find out how much working capital do you actually need. So that's the first bit of the program. So there's the education bit. And then, of course, if we run a business, it's always finding the customers, going global, going local. So there's a business matching exercise that we work with the association, trade associations, so that procurement managers share with the participants, okay, I'm a textile company, what do I usually procure from SMEs? I'm an automobile company, what do I procure from SMEs, and what are the requirements for that? So there's the business matching element to it. And because we are also backed by UNCDF and all the different partners that we have, we open access to financing based on that trade data, based on that new understanding that you built throughout the Melati program. So then at the end of it, you get access to working capital at the end of it. So it's like an integrated program where the modules are provided by different parties, even female entrepreneurs sharing something as simple as how do I migrate the data from Shopee, Tokopedia, and all the different e-commerce platforms that they use into a single database within their company. So something as simple as that, but for women entrepreneurs, then becomes, oh, so I can generate all these wonderful data and then put it in one place. How do I go about doing that? So those are some of the modules that we have. I'll type in the chat box the website and the Instagram handler. If you want to find out a little bit more, then we can share later on.
Yes, definitely, because some of our audience is also coming from Indonesia. So thank you, Lesia. So we would like to hear from the Philippine perspective, maybe moving forward to Mel. Over to you, Mel.
Yeah, so with me actually, like university was a very pivotal part in creating One Export and creating startups, right? This was One Export was my thesis actually, and it was a really good ground for me to test my idea, right? Like you could actually see if this is going to work. There are certain concepts like the business model canvas, or like certain theories that you can actually test your business against, which I think is very important, right? But first, I think more than anything, it's important to have a mindset where startups are great, and failure is okay, because a lot of times, right? Sometimes what we are taught in school is like have good grades, and so you don't fail in life, right? But sometimes these failures are necessary in order for businesses to survive and if not thrive, right? Because a lot of these failures are really about learning. And so I think, for university in general, it's important to really structure it in a way where students are allowed to fail in certain things, but not necessarily fail in terms of grades. There's a grading system that has to be changed where people move away from just doing traditional businesses, but also innovative businesses, and looking into really real world problems. And in general, really, it's about encouraging the next generation of students, or eventually startups, to build things that will change not just the communities but the world. And so I guess that's sort of the framework that has to really be changed and developed over time.
Yeah, thank you, Mel. I agree with you, because the only constant way in this life is change. So moving forward to Penny. Penny, would you like to share from Malaysian perspective? Over to you, please.
Yeah, sure. I do not want to again touch so much on the women's and so much on the theory, but I will say that there are some of the colleges over here in Malaysia or university in Malaysia, they are actually providing an opportunities that you can actually work from the campus itself. So they are creating some of the CSR program, like one of the university that I know of, one of the college that I know of is called Peninsula College. So Peninsula College, nowadays we have like, Mooncake Festival, we have like Chinese New Year, we have Hari Raya and so many festive. So the school actually get all these people to actually come up with some projects, like example, Mooncake Festival. All these students can actually go and source their products and start selling off. I think this is one of the theory skill that schools can actually embrace rather than just sharing theories. And secondly, I would say that schools can actually participate with a lot of all these kind of internship programs where work with those really renowned companies, not like, because most of the university or schools, they will ask the student to go and do like 3 months or 6 month interns, right? But most of the time interns, a lot of people treat these interns as a cheap labor. So if you can actually work with a lot of all these companies, renowned companies that can give them a real working experience, I think this is one thing that they can actually explore besides just the theory itself. And in Malaysia, like the government is actually, besides doing a lot of funding, they also come up with like one of the organization called Magic. Magic is like, I'm not sure whether you guys watch the startup Netflix from Korea. So we are just like another sandbox where if you, let's say you really want to start off with some ideas, you can actually go into this incubation for 4 months. They actually pay you some allowances and you can just technically, just like the startup in Korea, you can just go and experience things like that. I think this is a very good initiative. Like before you actually get investment, you don't actually burn your hand first. You actually go into the real scenario of incubation to prove your model works. And then eventually investor will invest in you. This is not just applied to female or male, but of course they do have programs that really supporting all this. And I think that this kind of opportunities or this kind of program is really very useful for a lot of entrepreneurs outside. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Penny. So now moving forward again to Shanas. Shanas, what is your perspective on this?
Yeah, in my perspective, in here, like exactly the same as the other goals which was already been spoken. From university, in here we are talking about literation, right? And then also education. And then from there, you'll be able to get knowledge. through your university experience, you'll be able to get not just only knowledge, but also about mentoring in here, internship, and then the most important things also, the last one is about advocacy. Because advocacy is very, very important when you are going to start your business, about licensing, legal system, and everything. And through university, through the network that you are built within university, you'll be able to get those things that you're going to need when you build your company later. And then when we are talking about education in here, we are not talking about a traditional education, but we are talking about the education nowadays, and we are talking about online. We be able to do it offline, and then we be able to do it online. Like the initiative that Alicia already being done with the Teman Latih is very good because it's part of the omni learning doors that we be able to get, and you be able to get it not by just attending the university on your own, but you be able to attend it in the comfort of your home, and you be able to do it dually while attending university, and then you also get another knowledge from outside of university. And then within university right now, especially during COVID, they already built the online system, right? Online, then offline. And I think is in here, like, because I'm working as a part-time lecturer in our local government university in Semarang. It's mandatory for the students to get credit from those omni channels outside of the campus or outside of the university. The government built this initiative called Campus Merdeka. So in Campus Merdeka, you'll be able to get subjects that's not being taught in university, but you want to get it. Like as for examples in here is about export, how you're going to create your business through export channeling, and then how are you going to enter export market, how are you going to develop your sociopreneurship, small scale businesses, and then to do the branding for that and the practices, and they have mentors. So in my point of view, education is a very important tools and very important things, and it's not just about grades. I agree with Penny and the others. It's not just about grades, but it's all about literation. It's all about knowledge.
Sure. Thank you, Shanas. Yes, education is not only obtained from the schools of university, perhaps like joining a trade for women community is also one of it to obtain the knowledge, of course, to be inspired to become entrepreneurs. So this might be the last questions, but the last question is only addressed to Alicia because one of our participants is wanted to know about the collateral issue that you mentioned before. So Alicia, would you please elaborate about that?
Yeah, traditionally we understand finance from if you go to a bank or if you go to a financial institution, it doesn't have to be a bank. To obtain finance, you need to have something as guarantee first. I think that's the traditional way of looking at it. But the financing universe has evolved so much that they've created different financial products now, that if you look into trade finance or supply chain finance facilities now, they're not basing the financing on any guarantee of a collateral, but they are looking at your trade as that collateral. So then say, for example, I sell to Lina. Lina buys from me on a regular basis 100 pieces of handbags, for example. And then if I go to, let's say TJ is the bank, and I say, hey TJ, I need working capital because I have this like 100 pieces of handbags on a monthly basis, but I don't have any land. I don't have any cars or motorcycles as guarantee. would you lend me the money? So then TJ would look at, okay, how's your business doing? Well, I'm getting orders. Lena's been paying me well. So then TJ assesses the risk based on my trade relationship with Lena instead of my ability to provide that collateral. So the landscape now have changed into financial products that uses trade as that basis for transaction. And even more so when it comes to exports, how do I know that 90 days from now, Lena will pay me when she's sitting somewhere in Africa and I'm based here in Indonesia or even the Philippines, for example. So that trade assessment becomes a risk management effort. I mean, the only reason that banks or financial institutions ask for collateral is to make sure that something is there for them to hold on to. It's like you having your friend asking you, hey, can I borrow you money? Can I borrow your money? And then you'll ask them, okay, are you making any money at the moment? Or do you have parents who can pay me back if you can't pay me back? So it's almost the same concept. It's just that in the financial landscape now, the instruments are so varied. And now it's the time, if people say, okay, the problem is that women don't have anything as collateral, let's look at the trade, because that's an option and it's being implemented everywhere else in the world. So why can't we leverage on that as well? But I guess the key to being able to do that is having that visibility over your trade, that it's well traced, it's well documented. So then even the financial provider can have that level of comfort. Okay, if I'm going to lend you this amount of money, I know that your buyer will pay me back when the maturity date comes, and that helps a lot in turning over cash. And then if you do have collateral for something, you can use that to access finance for your I guess your machinery purchases that spans over a longer period of time. I hope that helps the audience.
Yes, it's very helpful, I believe. So thank you so much, Alicia, Penny, Mel, and Shanas for great sharings and inspiring our audiences to become the women-led entrepreneurs. So this is the last questions that would be discussed in these Q&A sessions. So over to you again, TJ and Julia. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. So interesting, definitely for participants, do connect with them. Just even in this short sharing, there's been such a wealth of information that's been shared from the diverse backgrounds. Very practical tools that I think you can engage them to talk about. So I want to encourage all the participants, do that. Don't lose out on these opportunities. Because you don't know when they may come by again. So with that, it's been a pleasure talking to our speakers. I will pass the floor back to Julia to just close us off.
Thank you, TJ. I think we had an amazing episode number 8. I personally learned a lot from all of our speakers. Thank you so much again to Penny, Mel, Lisha, and Shanaz. We also touched upon many issues we actually do research on at ERIA. I mean, the relationship between university and other actors of the entrepreneurship ecosystem, women in e-commerce, the digital economy, skills. These are actually all issues we are very much looking at. And indeed, I think we shared a few links in the chat box to our publications. To those of you who are curious, you can just click on it and have a read when you have time. So thank you so much again. Before closing, let me just announce that we hope to welcome you back for ESI number 9. Here you see our flyer. We'll soon get more information through our website, through our channels. We'll talk about entrepreneurship and sustainability. This is something that we also started discussing today. And also, let me announce that we have another event next week. No, not next week, actually on the 7th of October. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused, too many things going on. That will be about women, leadership, and the digital economy. So if some of you want to connect with us again throughout the day, feel free to do so. We'll organize that event in collaboration with the ASEAN Network, another platform very active on the issue of technology, sustainable issues, sustainable development goals in Asia. So yeah, I think you just got the information here through the chat box. And finally, I would like to thank the colleagues from the E-Trade for Women community for putting us in contact with Shanaz, and we look forward to work with them again soon. Now I think it's time to close. Thank you very much to everybody again, and see you soon virtually in a few weeks' time. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care. Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you.